everyone, it's Melissa and welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I will be doing a tutorial using the July 2022 Jesse James Beads Magical Mystery Bead Box Sunflowers by Vincent van Gogh. And I'm also going to be adding in some of my own beads like 6mm crystals and then a couple other bead mixes such as the Never Give Up bead mix to incorporate these little swallowtails in here. Supplies needed, we'll be using from the Sunflowers mix from the Magical Mystery Bead Box. These little yellow beads here with the gray mat, the 6mm rondels, and from the Bouquet bead mix, we'll be using this gorgeous enameled sunflower pendant and these two little sunflower drops. From the Gratitude, Friendship, and Happiness bead mix, we will be using these little gold-toned flower beads and these adorable teardrop beads. And then from the Self-Love Collection Never Give Up bead mix, we'll be using the Swallowtail charms. We'll also be using a golden flower clasp from the box, as well as this adorable flower chain. You will also need some size 11 seed beads. You will need a beading needle and wildfire or Nymo. Any type of beading thread will work great for this project. And we will also be using these little flower beads or bead caps, and they come in the ice cream bead mixes like the banana cream and vanilla bean. So I'll go ahead and leave links in the description box for the products that I have used. Go ahead and gather your supplies and let's start creating. You will also need your pliers on hand and your wire cutters, or if you have a thread zapper, you can use that as well. Just in case like your needle does get stuck in between the beads, it's really nice to have pliers on hand. You can just grab it and pull it out. Just kind of a little handy trick. You'll also need some jump rings because we will be attaching the charms later on in the project, and we can add those on at a later time. Let's go ahead and get started. Today's project is very similar to this necklace that I made a few months ago, so I will go ahead and leave a link in the description box for the bead woven butterfly necklace. It's actually for the bracelet, but it's the same concept and how you get to make these little components here, and then instead of attaching it with the different beads, we're just going to connect all the components together for today's project. So just another little spin on right angle weave. And during your project, if you are ever running low on thread, take your working thread and your new thread. Of course, take the needle off and do an overhand knot and pull. Make sure it is nice and secure. And you can test that by pulling the two threads. And if the knot starts to come undone like that, your knot is not tight enough. And then you can always just do another knot to make sure it is nice and secure. You want to make sure when your knot is secure that it's not too bulky, because it still needs to pass through your seed beads and your other beads. Then you would just trim off the little tail. And restring your new thread and continue your project. You're going to grab your needle. I'm using a big-eyed needle or a wide-eyed needle. It's because kind of one size fits all, so it's super easy to string and thread. Go ahead and put your thread through, and we're going to be working with about 24 inches of thread. If you need to work with shorter lengths, we can always add thread into the project. Let me go ahead and clear off the beads I don't need. The really cool thing about this project too is it's a lot of different steps and techniques that you can combine into one project, or you can always add more, take some away. It's super fun. To get started, we're going to be starting by using right angle weave. So you're going to need your 6mm bicones, size 11 seed beads. I will be using Tohos, and then we're going to be using these little flower bead caps. me go and clear off the beads I don't need. The really cool thing about this project too is it's a lot of different steps and techniques that you can combine into one project, or you can always add more, take some away. It's super fun. To get started, we're going to be starting by using right angle weave. So you're going to need your 6mm bicones, size 11 seed beads. I will be using Tohos, and then we're going to be using these little flower bead caps. Go ahead and pick up 4 of the 6mm bicones. And you can pick them up from the bead mat if you would like, or if you want to pick them up in your other hand and string them onto the needle, completely up to you. So we should have the 4 bicones, and we're just going to slide them down to the end of our thread. We're going to take our needle and we're going to pass through that first bicone that we just slid on the thread. And then we're going to slide through the other 3. And we can do this all in one pass, or you can do it bead by bead or bicone by bicone. We're just going to go ahead and pull. And don't worry, your thread might get a little kind of tangled and wonky there. Everything will work out. So we're going to kind of have this weird little shaped circle here. So it's going to look like this. If it's a little too high up on your thread, this is a great time. We can just go ahead and move it down into place. Then as you can see, it's going to start to tighten as well. So it's coming out of this bicone here. We're just going to go back through that first bicone and pull. And we have, move those threads out of the way there. We have our first little unit or component. So we have a thread coming out this way, which is our working thread, and we have our tail thread. And this is where you would attach your clasp, or you'd attach the chain or the component, and we'll get to that part a little later in our design. So what I'm doing is I'm coming out of this bicone here. I'm just going to go to the next bicone and pass through it. When you go through the next one, it kind of just adds the definitive end of where your tail is, so you're not having 2 threads coming out of the same bicone. It's kind of an optional step. So we're coming out of this top bicone now. We're going to pick up 3 bicones. We're exiting, roll away bicone. We're exiting out of this thread here, or this bead here, so we're going to come in the opposite way. If we go in the same way, it's just going to make the beads pop off. And right away you'll know that the needle went in the wrong direction. Go ahead and give it a pull. And we have our second little unit. So now we're going to go ahead and reinforce this unit. And by doing that, we're just going to be reweaving back through the beads. There we go. We want to make sure that our needle is coming out of one of the top beads here. So we can add on our next little unit and component. If you want to pick up your piece, it is pretty stable. So you can start to see the little pattern here that we are creating. And the cool thing is then we're going to add on the little flowers to some of them, to like a little sunflower meadow. So we're going to be working on our third one. We're going to pick up 3 more bicones. We're exiting this way, so we're going to come in the other way. Just going to pull. And then we're going to pass back through and reinforce and exit out of this top bicone here. So we have 3 units done. We're going to go ahead and add 2 more units. So we're going to add 6 more beads. So pick up your first set of 3. We're exiting out of this one. We're going to pass through the opposite side and go and give it a pull. and reinforce that one and then add on the other 3 beads. So we just added on the 5 units. Now with this one, I didn't do the step up and come out of this bead here because we're going to do something just a little bit different. So we're exiting out of this bead here. We're just going to go through that next bead. This is where it may seem a little tricky. We're going to do a turn. So with that, this is now going to become the end bead. So I'll show you what that'll look like. So we're going to pick up 3 more. Remember, we're exiting out of this bead here, so we need to come in through this way. Go and pull. My little thread fell off my needle. There we go. So as you can see, it's coming down this way, and then it's going to start to do a V the other way. So now if you want to pick up the piece and it's easy to work in your hands just because it's a little bit bigger of a component, we can do that as well. And we're just going to go and reinforce it. And whatever works for you to keep the beads stable so they're not all moving around on your bead mat or your bead board is perfectly fine. I'm just kind of putting your finger on there. So we're coming out of this bead here. We're going to go back through this same bead next to it. And now we're going to start on this bead here. So we want to step up to that component. So we're stepping up to this bead here. So same thing. And then you can kind of see that little like check mark or that V kind of starting into play. So if you want to turn it, oops, and then that happens, straighten it out. We're going to add 3 more beads. We're exiting this side here, so we're just going to come in from the opposite side. Go ahead and pull. Then we're going to reinforce. All the way through. And if you feel confident, you can pass more than 1 bead at one time. Just make sure that you don't go through the wrong bead or through your thread, because then they can get a little tangled and look a little off on your design. So I'm going to step up to this next one here and add on 3 more beads. We're coming out this way here. We're going to go in the opposite way. And we're going to reinforce. Oops, I only added 2 beads. See, if you do something wrong, you can automatically tell that it's the wrong amount or wrong thread pass. So now we have our 3 beads. We're going to go through the opposite way and reinforce it. We're going to add 1 more group of 3. 1, 2, 3. And this will finish off, oops, this will finish off this row here in this unit. And to count them, you always want to count kind of this little center bead here. That's where we turned. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to count this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you would count that again. Or, since it's a mirror image, you can just kind of try to fold it and then see how many more rows you need to do that way. So we're exiting out of this one here. We're just going to pass through. And then we're going to reinforce. So we just reinforced this last one here. Now we're going to kind of add on our charms and embellishments. And that way we can see if we want to continue adding a little bit more or we like it as is. So we're going to have our focal. We're going to add on our little butterfly charm. There we go. Then we add on the little stars or the little flowers. So with these, you don't want to put them every other one because they're going to kind of overlap. So we're going to be putting one on for the sunflower. We're going to skip one, and then we'll add one on for the butterfly. We'll add one on at the end. So do the same thing on that one. So your design will look like this once we attach everything together. Now, if you wanted to, I also pulled these ones out. We could add a couple more. We would have to add 4 more units, 2 on each side, and then we could go ahead and attach these on. I think we'll go ahead and do that. Give it more of a sunflower meadow. So we move these out of the way. Sometimes you have your design in mind, and then when you're creating it, things happen, or you just kind of change your mind and another project is born. So we're exiting out of this way here. We're going to pick up 3 more bicones. Exiting this way. Going through the opposite way. And then we're just going to reinforce. And then we're going to add 1 more set of 3. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we just completed this side here. You can remove your needle. We're going to add the same amount, the 2 units, to the other side. So with your tail thread, string it onto your needle. Now we're coming out of this bead here, so we just need to go to the next one. And then we're going to add our 2 more units. Pick up the 3 beads. Exiting this way, we're going to go in this way. So we have this so far on our design. Now we're going to go ahead and add on our embellishments and our charms. So we want to make sure that we have enough components and everything is going to look okay. I'm going to add on the butterfly. Now with this, don't worry if it's, really stiff, because when we add more beads, we can expand it out to like that. So we'll have enough for the dangles. Or if you want it a little bit tighter, we can do that as well. If you don't want to add dangles on the bottom and maybe just add the flowers and then 1 charm, you can do that as well. So I'll show you how to add everything on, and then it's just up to you what you would like to add to your necklace. So we have the butterflies. Those will go on the 3rd. And we have the little flowers at the end. So we're going to start with one of the clear flowers in the center, and then we're going to skip 1. Add on the yellow, and then skip 1, add on the clear, and if we wanted to, we could add 1 at the very end, just like that. And I think we can maybe move our little yellow swallowtail to in between the flowers. That's going to look cute. All right, so everything measures up. It's going to look great. Let's go ahead and attach our flowers. So we're going to move our charms out of the way. Once you have your flowers the right way that you would like, I'm just going to move them off to the side in the same order. So we are coming out of that side bead. We're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads. And our flower, we want to make sure that the flower is facing down when we thread it on the needle, so it's right side up. We're going to pick up 1 size 11 seed bead. So you should have 3 size 11 seed beads, your flower, and a size 11 seed bead. Go ahead and let it slide down. And with the needle, we're going to skip that last little seed bead that we put on. We're just going to slide our thread back through the flower, and we're going to pull. So it should look just like that. And that little size 11 seed bead is going to act as a little stopper so your flower doesn't fly off. And it also acts like a little stem or the pollen of the flower. We're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads. Now, kind of the same thing when we were doing right angle weave with our units. We're exiting this one here. So now we have to crisscross. So if we're exiting this way, we want to crisscross and go through this bead here and thread it through. That's going to give stability to the flower. Just like that, we've just attached our first flower. Okay, so we're coming out of this one here, and remember we're skipping one of the units. So we're exiting this one here. We're going to pass through that next size 6mm bicone. And then we have this bead here. So we're going to go through just like that. That next bicone. We're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads, our flower bead, slide it on like that. 1 size 11 seed bead, let it slide down. And when you add a couple flowers, you'll start to see the pattern. The first one's just a little tricky, and because they are all the same color bicone, it does make it a little bit of a challenge to kind of see which bead to go through. So we're not going to go through that seed bead. We're just going to pass back through the flower. And then we're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads. We're exiting this one here, so we're going to go in through that next bicone on that components and pull. And there you go. And then from the back, it'll look like that. So now we're exiting this way here. We're going to go through that next bicone. And by going back through the component that we're making, it's going to reinforce it. And then we're going to go through this bicone. Be careful when you're pulling your thread too that it doesn't get caught on your flowers. So we're skipping this one, and we're going to add one of the yellow flowers now. So we're going to pick up 3 size 11 seed beads, your flower, and a toho, or a seed bead. I'm using tohos. Pass back through your flower. Go and pull. Pick up 3 size 11s. We're coming out this way here, so we're going to go in through this next one. Necklace is coming along. So pretty. Okay, so this one's going to be a little bit tricky because this is where we did the turn and where we're going to need to add that extra little flower into. So for this one, we're just going to go through that next bead on the next little unit, pull through, and we're going to go through this one here. So we're exiting this one. We're just going to go through the next bicone. You want to make sure everything is nice and tight. If you see your flowers kind of drooping or wilting, just make sure that the tension is nice and tight on your thread, but don't pull too hard. You don't want to snap your thread. So we're going to pick up 3 more size 11 seed beads. We're going to pick up the crystal clear flower, 1 seed bead, drop it down, So you're coming out of this one here, we're going to connect it to this one. You have our flower attached. We're going to pick up 3 more bicones. We're going out of this one. We're going to slide in through that one. Untangle the thread. Oops. So as you can see there, I was going out this way and I came in that way. And that's how it lays. So it's going to lay kind of off to the side. So we'll just back up. We'll go through the other side. There we go. Easy fix. So just like that, you can see if you're going down the wrong bead because it will look a little bit different on your design. And that way we're also facing this way so we can continue to attach our other little flowers. So you just kind of need to move our component or our unit, go through that next bead. We're going to skip this one here and go through this one. So we're ready to add our next flower. We're coming out of this unit here, this bicone. We're going to pick up the 3. We're on the yellow flower. Thread that on and your seed bead, and we'll attach that one and then just add on your other 2 flowers. So your necklace should look like this so far. Now we're going to start to add on the components and the charms. Just kind of lay those back into place. We're going to end up putting them, there we go. And don't worry about your little tail thread. We'll work on that just a little bit later. So we still have our thread and we're coming out of that last bicone. So we're just going to do kind of the same thing and weave it back through, but now we're going to be attaching the charms. So go ahead and get your jump rings out and attach jump rings to each one of your charms. And we're also going to be bringing in these little yellow beads from the sunflower mix, and there's also some in the bead mix for Never Give Up. So we'll need those now for our design. We'll be using 6mm jump rings, and I will be using a silver jump ring just so it can stand out in the design so you can see where it is going to attach onto our piece. So we open up our jump rings, just pull it gently side to side, slide on the charm, and close it back up, and we'll attach the others. We want to make sure that the jump ring is completely closed so we can run our finger over it, make sure that it's not open, because the thread is so thin that it's possible that just any little bit of thread's going to pass through and you're going to lose your charm. So you want to make sure it's completely closed, or if you would like, you can always use split rings. Let's start attaching our charms. So the first one, we're coming out this way here where we ended it. We're going to go back through that next bicone. Kind of the same way that we did when we added on the flower embellishments on top. We're just going to be doing that now on the bottom. So we're now coming out of this bicone here. Now depending where you want to add your charm, if it's off of that first little dangle, then we'll add it here. So I'll add mine there and show you what it looks like. We're going to pick up 2 size 11 seed beads. We're going to pick up one of the little yellow beads, 3 size 11 seed beads. So we have 2 size 11 seed beads, your little yellow bead with the matte coloring, and 3 seed beads. Now we are exiting out of this way, so we're going to slide on our charm the opposite way. And then we're going to add 1 more of the yellow beads and 2 more seed beads. You know your charm's going to look a little upside down and wonky, but it'll turn out. So we're exiting this one here and we're just going to pass through that first bicone. And pull. And you have your dangle. Just like that. And now we're going to reinforce the dangle on our component. So we're going to go back down through the 2 seed beads and your yellow beads and back around. Do this 2 to 3 times just so it enforces it, and depending on the weight of your charm as well. If it's super heavy, like our main component is, we want to go through it quite a few times just to make sure that it's not going to snap our thread or wear over time and then become loose. So we're just going to go back through and reinforce this. So we just reinforced it. We're coming out of this bicone here. Go ahead and pick up 3 seed beads. Oops, one of mine just started going down the thread. And instead of going through the units and weaving through the bicones, now we're just going to be going bicone to bicone on the bottom. So we're exiting out of this bicone. We're going to slide through that next bicone and pull it through. Make sure not to get tangled. Move that little tail thread out of there. And this is going to start to make your little unit and your component, your bead structure, nice and secure while adding embellishments to the bottom. So we're going to skip this unit here. We're not going to hang any charms off of it. We're going to pick up 3 more seed beads. We're coming out of this bicone and we're going to go to the next bicone. And give it a pull. Now you might notice on your bicone or your seed beads that some may lay straight and some might kind of picot. That's completely okay, because you can always add fringe or another charm on there if you wanted to, or just kind of adds to a little bit of the design. So now we have to figure out where we're going to add our swallowtail charms to. Remember, we do have the giant sunflowers, so we want them not to be, clashing for attention there. So I think I'm going to do it, go through one more and then attach it in between this one. So we're going to pick up 3 more seed beads. And we're going to go through your seed bead or your bicone. Like that. And then we're going to add, and when you add the little seed beads in between, you don't need to go back and reinforce them. So this one here, we're going to add 3 more. And we're going to go through that bicone. So we have the little flower charm and then 2 of the little picots. We're exiting out of this bicone, and this is where we're going to add our swallowtail drop. It's the same thing. I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads, 1 of the little yellow beads, 3 seed beads. Remember, we're coming out of this one here, so we want to make sure that our butterfly is going to be facing the right direction. We're going to add on another yellow little bead and 2 more seed beads. It's all twisted. So we're exiting out of this one here. We're going to go back in through that bicone next to that little picot and pull through. And then we're going to go back and reinforce. So when you're working between the bicones, we're adding 3 seed beads and it's going to do a little picot drop. And when we're attaching charms and dangles, we're going to be attaching them to the bicone and working back through and reinforcing. So we'll reinforce the butterfly. So we've just added on the butterfly and reinforced it. We're going to be picking up 3 seed beads. This might get a little tricky because it's going to start to tighten up on your design to try to pass through the needle. But we're coming out of that bottom bicone next to the butterfly. Add the 3 seed beads on and go through the next bicone. Thread got tangled there. Then we're going to do the same thing 2 more times. Attach 3 seed beads, go through the bicone and 3 more, and then I'll show you how to add on the sunflower. Out of this bicone here, and it's attached to another bicone, so it doesn't have the space in between like the little seed bead. So instead of reinforcing it from the bicone, we're going to use this whole unit where this flower is on as the reinforcement, just to increase the structure of it, just to make sure that that sunflower isn't going anywhere. So pick up 2 size 11 seed beads, a yellow bead, 3 size 11 seed beads. We are exiting out of that way, so we want to make sure that our sunflower pendant is facing the right way. pick up one more yellow bead, and then 2 size 11s. We're exiting out of this one here, and we're just going to step up to that next bicone on the line. A little bit twisted there on the thread. Move that flower out of the way, and we're going to reinforce by going back through this unit. So we're coming out of this bead here. We're going to step up to this next bicone, pull through, come down through this bicone on the side. Make sure that your thread doesn't get caught on any of the flowers. You're going to go back through this next bicone and reinforce your design and pass through it about 2 to 3 times. So we went ahead and reinforced it. We're going to pick up 3 seed beads. We are exiting out of this one here. We're going to go through that next bicone on the side of it and pull it through. And now we have to look at our other side with a little tail thread out of the way and make sure that our butterflies and our flowers match. If you want, you could flip-flop them and kind of alternate them like that. I think that would look really cute. So we have the butterfly coming out of the third one. We just did one, so our butterfly would be coming out of here. So we'll just keep adding those charms on, and then I'll show you how to do the next part of the necklace. Just like that, your necklace should look like this. How beautiful, just like a sunflower field and sunflower meadow. How pretty. So we're going to need to add some more thread. That's why I kind of like to leave my tails on there. I can always add more thread to it. So I went ahead and reinforced this little flower, and I stepped up through this bicone here. And then what we're going to do, we have a couple different options. We can go ahead and start to attach the end part of this beaded component and start adding on our chain. Or if you want, you can add on some seed beads on top. And you would just add on 2 seed beads per each little unit, or between each little bicone, just so it can hold its shape for a V. So if you wanted to, we're coming out of this bicone here, we would just pick up 2 little seed beads and slide it on through the next bicone on the side. We're going to need the thread. So we're going to measure 2 of the flowers. We're going to go to the next infinity link, and we're going to open up that jump ring. So we should have the infinity link, and we're going to start with an infinity link and end with one. So open up this jump ring, and we're going to save the jump ring because that's how we're going to attach our clasp. And you can move it off to the side or just kind of close it up. So this is what we should have, an infinity link, 2 of the flowers, 2 of the little gold circles, and then your infinity links in between. So it's going to look like that. We're just going to open up this jump ring. We still have plenty of chain for another project. Just like that. So we're going to move one of those off to the side. So we're going to attach this beaded component to the chain. So we're exiting out of the side bicone. We're going to pick up a bicone, a 6mm rondel, and a bicone. Just let that slide down. Just kind of create that little side component. We're going to pick up the little gold flower bead and one of the little yellow beads. Slide that down. We have our 5 seed beads, and we're going to pass through the infinity sign. Now your seed beads are going to go right through it. That's okay. We're going to pick up 5 more size 11 seed beads and just slide those down. So it should look like that. You have your 10 seed beads connected to the chain. We're going to skip through the seed beads and pass through that first little yellow bead and pass through the gold flower bead. And pull it through. We're coming out of this gold bead. We're going to pick up a size 6mm bicone and one of the rondels and a 6mm bicone. When we started this unit and to connect it, we were exiting out of the bottom of the bicone. So we're just going to go back through the top. And just make sure you just go through the bicone. You don't want to go through any other seed beads or charms, jump rings. Just pull that through. And we have just built the little connection point. So we're coming out through the bottom. We're just going to go through and we're going to reinforce this a couple times, 3 to 4 times, just because it is attached to the chain. And this is our connection point. So we want to make sure that this is nice and secure. So we're just going to run the string or thread back through and reinforce that, making sure not to get snagged on any of your little flower components. So we'll just reinforce that. Now that we've reinforced this connection point, you have a couple different options. With your thread remaining, you can weave it back through your design, make sure it's nice and snug and it's not going to come undone from the chain or the rest of your beadwork. Or you can do a couple knots in the thread and just weave it back through, and the knots will nestle in between your piece. Completely up to you. So I'm just going to take my tail thread and weave back through my design, making a few little knots along the way, and it'll just nestle into my piece. And then any little tail thread that is remaining, go ahead and trim off, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to do the same thing on the next side. Pick up a 6mm bicone, a rondel, and a 6mm bicone. Pick up your gold flower bead, one of your yellow beads. Slide it down. Pick up 5 size 11 seed beads and the other side of your chain with your infinity link. Untwisted here from your flowers, and add on 5 more. Or again, if you wanted to add on 10 and then slide on the link of chain, you can do that as well. Make sure my chain's going the right way. We're going to pass back through. Then we're going to add on our last bicones. So a bicone, a rondel, and a bicone. We exited out of the bottom, so we're just going to go in through the top. Just like that, and then go back and reinforce, and then finish up your thread. And I'll show you how to add on the clasp. Our beautiful necklace is almost completed. So we're going to use the golden flower clasp from the Magical Mystery Bead Box. Open this up. Remember how we left the jump rings on at the end? We're just going to open up each side of the jump ring and attach our clasp. Now, since it is a magnetic clasp, your pliers may stick to it. And do the same thing on the other side. Open up that jump ring and attach your clasp on the other side. Close it up. So beautiful, full of sparkle. Make sure my flowers are going the right way. Like that, we have a sunflower field necklace. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe for further content. Have a wonderful day.